Osu. Peace, Black Power, and welcome to Harlem Liberation School's YouTube channel. Harlem Liberation School is a Black nationalist, Pan-African community organization based in Harlem. We provide relevant and credible political education to help Black people wake up, clean up, and stand up, in the words of Brother Malcolm X. To do this, we provide panel discussions, political commentary, mini documentaries, leadership tips, classes, and interviews with some of our most dedicated and effective leaders, activists, and intellectuals around the world. Peace and Black Power, family. It's Brother Agyei Tyehimba here with Harlem Liberation School, where we teach Black people to wake up, clean up, and stand up. We want to welcome everyone that will be in the live version of this broadcast. And in advance, we want to thank and welcome those of you who will watch the later recorded version. One thing I like about YouTube is that it archives all of these videos, so nothing goes to waste. If nobody watches this today, this video will still be here 20 years from now, assuming that there's still a YouTube thing. So I appreciate that aspect of it. Please, family, don't take and share. Keep all this goodness to yourself. Share it with a comrade, a brother, sister, family member, friend that you think will benefit, particularly if they're involved and meaningfully involved, and if they care about rescuing and reclaiming and resurrecting the Black man, woman, and child in the United States and throughout the world. That's what our organization is about. That said, I'm Brother Agyei Tyehimba, educator, author, activist. We're going to be delving into a topic that's very important, but before that, I want to just make a few quick announcements. What we're trying to do is build out the channel. We're trying to make sure that we're not just another YouTube presence, just taking up space, so to speak, but that we are actually building out this organization into an institution. And part of that means that we are trying to add on to our programming and our content. So I'm going to say this: if you're somebody that has a specialty that relates to something to do with nationalists, Pan-Africanist politics, organizing, therapy, counseling, education, things of that sort of ilk, hit us up. We might be able to talk about how we can get you on for a broadcast interview, or possibly, depending on how it works out, and if what you're kicking fits in with what we're kicking, maybe you can come on monthly. We're trying to really build this out. You know how you go to the TV and they have a whole guide, and they have every day they have programming. Why can't Harlem Liberation School's channel be like that? We have all types of programming throughout on different days, build it out like that, have that type of vision. That's what we're trying to do. So in line with that, I'm happy to announce that we have our brother, comrade, Republican New Africa in the building, Brother Bomani Uhuru Jihad Shakur. We have to say all those names because there's another Bomani Shakur, and we don't want to get them confused. He's going to be doing a monthly political prisoner report, second Wednesday of each month, starting on March 11th. So we're going to really be delving in on what's the language when you hear political prisoner, or you hear prisoner of war, or you hear about Mamia Abu Jamal and some of the different language that comes up around that issue. The first episode on March 11th, we're going to be talking about some of the basic language associated and background associated with political prisoners. And each episode is going to really get into maybe a different person that is a political prisoner, their case. We'll have calls to action, trying to get people to write, numbers to call to get involved. It's something that I personally said this year I want to get more involved with that, because these are people that have done this work and have been punished for doing very important work, have been sent to prison, not necessarily because they actually committed a crime, but because of their political beliefs and alliances. That's illegal, by the way. In America, will tell you they don't have political prisoners, and they're lying. There's all types of political prisoners of all colors, I might add, of all races and ethnicities. So we hope you'll tune in March 11th. Hope you tune in every second Wednesday of every month. We're going to try it for 6 months, see how it goes. Very excited about that. Bring real content to the community in an area that is under utilized. Not enough public media surrounds what's going on with our political prisoners. Secondly, we're going to have Dr. Osar Winkler. We're going to try him out on a kind of a probationary period to see how it goes as well. And he's going to be talking about understanding and resolving Black trauma. So he's going to be approaching this from a therapeutic point of view. He is a licensed therapist and counselor and all those good things. To talk about our families, our relationships, our organizations, the way that the trauma we've been through as Africans and new Africans, what coping mechanisms we've developed, sometimes escapism, drugs, alcohol, whatever we do to escape, getting high, right? Joining cults, becoming abusive. All of those are forms or responses to or signs of trauma that we faced. These deviant behaviors, which means abnormal behaviors, are caused by something. People don't come out that way. They are shaped and molded in these ways. They're deformed, we might say, because of trauma. So our brother is going to be helping us deal with that. So very excited to say that we're building out the channel, and very excited about that. Now, let me start tonight. Let me first know we got some comments, and if I know my queen correctly, Queen Brenda, I know that she's gonna say something like, "Wukusu, thanks for coming out." Am I right? I am right. Wukusu family. She's gonna thank you for coming out. She's gonna ask you probably to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Family, listen. It's been quite a few years since some fool hacked our account and put up some crazy content, and YouTube took Black Liberation University down. Right, that was bordering on 8,000 subscribers. This channel, which started about 4 years ago, now is almost at 7,000. We're very close, probably by the end of the week. So we want to thank you for your support. But 7,000 ain't enough. That ain't saying nothing. We need to be at 100,000 easily. Everybody, Harlem Liberation School, the name rings out. People know it all over the world. Love the work. Love the people that come on. Okay. So you know what? Do something free that will help us help you. Subscribe. Click the button. That's all you got to do. Right? We would appreciate it. Okay. I want to thank the Queen for her support. We got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm not going to announce it yet, though. We're going to keep that close to chest until it's ready, and then we'll make some very important, exciting announcements about Harlem Liberation School. I want to now get into the topic of what we're talking about. I want to kind of begin with a question that may make some of us uncomfortable, but it's important. Most activists, and now I'm talking about our Pan-Africans, our nationalists, our socialists in the building. Some of us are anarchists, believe it or not, all types of ideologies, right? And all of us kind of think that our particular ideology is the number one ideology in existence, that it's liberating us, that it has the answers, right? But there's a question we have to ask. And the question simply is, what happens when our ideology doesn't have all the answers? What happens when our ideology has answers and some of them are incorrect? What happens when our ideology starts off serving the people, educating the people, empowering the people, but takes a weird left turn and goes from being a liberation tool to actually becoming divisive and oppressive itself, leading us to mistreat, torture, harm some of our own people and members? These are the questions we have to answer. Now, throughout history, powerful ideologies have developed that have fueled different liberation movements and struggles. These are ideas around what is freedom, what does liberation look like, what qualifies as you being a liberated being, ideas about dignity, ideas about justice, self-determination. And these ideas have inspired people, millions of people around the world throughout history, to organize, to mobilize, to resist oppression, to educate their people, right? and to attempt to transform the societies in which they live. Those those ideas are noble, and what they show us, whether we're talking about a form of communism, Marxism, socialism, whether we're talking about uh, um, anarchism, we're talking about nationalism or Pan Africanism. Some would say feminism or Africana womanism, whatever ideology we're talking about that's liberatory, liberation oriented. Um, we have to be honest, because when we study the history, and don't forget, family, I'm a historian, so I'm going to come from education. Sometimes I'm come from sociology, but I'm a historian too. So everything here is wedded to the history. Else we're just talking. It's just abstract, right? History happened. That's factual. We can't erase it, and people can misinterpret it. But the history is important. And we look at the history; it shows us clearly that many times these very noble ideas and ideologies, which are frameworks, family. They're frameworks to give you a general idea who's oppressing you and what way are they oppressing you? How does that oppression affect you, right? What are ways that we can resist and fight back? What are the things we should be demanding? What type of society do we envision in the future? And how are we going to create that society? Ideology addresses all those things. But the history shows us conclusively that many times ideologies are communicated by people. And this is where it gets tricky, because people, family, can be complicated, can be complex, can be jaded, can be damaged. If we can be really honest, people can get things wrong. I listen. I've gotten at least a trillion things. I don't think that's a real word. I've gotten a trillion things wrong in my life. I can admit that. That's a fact, right? So people may start out with good ideas and good intentions, but power gets in it. The women start feeling them because they on the mic and the camera all the time, and they like their cologne and the way they look, and they like how they talk. Next thing, the guy that got into other people, he's now becoming paying attention to the attention he's getting, right? Or the sister that joined it to really help the community, she's getting money, right? She's starting to say, wow, this is lucrative. I didn't. And now she may not be focused on the liberation piece of it. History is clear on this. I'm not making this up for him. So sometimes the very ideologies, which remember is a set of ideas, a framework that helps to start off a liberation movement, can eventually deteriorate if we don't properly understand, represent, and apply and put things in place. It can deteriorate and become rigid, dogmatic, and even oppressive. Tonight, I want to talk about something that movements don't discuss often. And things we don't discuss are oftentimes some of the most important things. The things that if we do discuss them, if we have the courage to deal with it, those uncomfortable questions, and we resolve them, they can be the difference between us winning or losing. And this is very important. And this is the beauty and the burden of ideology, right? Because if we're serious, and I'm going to say serious about building strong, effective liberation movements and about winning, not just having an organization or ideology or movement, but we're actually being successful, then we're going to have to understand some things and raise those tough questions and answer them together. First, let's establish this very clearly. Movements cannot exist without an ideology. And let me be clear. There's political ideologies, there are social ideologies, there are economic ideologies, capitalism, right? Marxism. There are religious ideology. Many of you say Jesus is your personal Lord and Savior and may not know that you believe in an ideology called Christianity. And some of you believe in an ideology called Buddhism and Confucianism and all types of things. right? But you're not going to have an organized movement without ideology. It just doesn't happen. And I should say that ideology is not just some theory that sits in some dusty book somewhere. Um, Ideology is all important. I remember that I worked for this guy. I'm not going to say his name in Harlem back in the day, famous guy. And he was, oh, here you go. He would hear me talking with people and he said, oh, here goes the philosopher. And I didn't take offense to that because my understanding was philosophers are people that are basically talking about ideas. And ideas rule this world. I don't know if you noticed that. Ideas rule this world. The God you believe in, how you pray, the clothes you wear, the things you think is sexy, the things you think is ugly and repulsive, the movies you like, the neighborhoods you think are classy, the types of music you think is highbrow, the types you think is low culture. Those are ideas, right? They rule the world, right? So ideology is very important because ideology is shaping how all of these people understand the world they occupy and how they respond to what they perceive to be injustice. Ideology, by the way, is how this country got formed. It's an ideology. Historians know it's called manifest destiny. The white man came with this thing. God put us on this here earth to take over that land. I know them Indians was there, whoever you want to call them, but God has put us here, the superior race, to take the land from these people and do what's right with the land because them little ignorant, backwards, primitive people don't know how to take care of this beautiful land. God put us here to do it. So they created an ideology to support the oppressive and colonizing ways, right? That's ideology, right? Okay. And one of the most important things ideology does is it helps us to name things. It's very important. Name it and claim it. There's power in naming. Ideology helps us to name things, to see structures, to think of the things that are going on to that grandma deals with and great grandpa and auntie, right? The elders, the young ones, the babies, the women, the men, that it's not just happening to you. I know you're complaining about it. You feel it a certain way. I feel it a different way, but it ain't just you. Ideology helps you see this is structural. This is happening to millions of people that look like you. Women, men, heterosexual, homosexual, black, white, workers, right? That this thing that's going on is not individual, it's actually systemic. It's happening to millions of groups of people. That's what ideology helps us understand. It helps us to see structures, systems, right? So when we talk about so and so is doing bad in school, all these black boys disproportionately being suspended out of middle school and high school, disproportionate to every other group of people. Fact, right? And increasingly more black girls too. We look at all these black men sent to prison, disproportionately Latino men sent to prison, and Latino and black women catching up too. We begin to see that's not incidental, accidental. That's what systemic. That's a structure that's doing that, right? And these structures are what interlinked. People learn things in school. People learn things in their hood. Their hoods are segregated and cut off from the major populations, right? The mainstream jobs ain't in the hood. They downtown everywhere in this country. Everywhere. The good jobs are downtown, right? We associate downtown with that's high, that's good, that's class, right? Because it ain't where you live. Anywhere but where you live, right? We live uptown in the hood, and the hood has what? Certain things that happen everywhere in the country. So I could talk to a brother in Florida and he'll tell me about, yeah, man, we was growing up, we was slinging drugs and we was doing this and we was drinking and we had these after hour spots. And I'll say, wow, that's interesting because guess what? In Harlem, we had drugs and gangs and after hour spots. And we may think if we're in a little bubble that it's just us that go through that. But sometimes you got to pretend you're a giant and you standing up and you looking over the whole world, not looking this way, you looking down on the whole world, and you'll see, wow, New York, LA, Detroit, Tampa, Miami, everywhere, Las Vegas, everywhere black people and brown people exist, the same things are happening. That now means it's not just because you live here or there, it's systemic. That means that there's people that are creating policies and engaging in practices that are creating certain environments and situations for some people and other environments and situations for different groups of people. Ideology helps us understand that, right? It helps us understand that oppression is organized and that if we want to combat it, we better be organized too, right? And if thousands of people are trying to build something together, they need a framework that allows them to analyze problems collectively and coordinate their strategy together. So it helps us to name things and see structures. Ideology helps us to provide a moral center, an ethos, an ethic, right? Movements have to answer difficult questions. What do we stand for? Ideology answers that. What compromise? What are we willing to compromise for? What would we never compromise? Right? What kind of society are we trying to build? What vision do we have? We don't like this. So, okay. So, what type of world are we trying to create? And what would that look like? And what do we need to do to create that world in the future? Ideology answers all of these questions. It is very important. I'm going to stop. I see some comments. I see the Queen. Says, yes, sir, we want to win. That's right. Queen is acknowledging, oh, my brother Knowledge Born Alive in the building. That's what's good. Actually, I'm going to be talking to brother Knowledge Born Alive in a few weeks about his new ebook coming out. All right. Queen says ideology is rooted in vision. And I think she's saying, yes, she agrees with something. I don't know what, but I'm glad she agrees with something. That's great. That's a good thing. Right. So that's the key. Ideology does all this. What type of society? That's the question that I don't hear people asking enough and talking about. We talking about fighting and doing it. Okay. Once we finish fighting and we won, now what? So we got to be thinking about what do we want we don't like their schools. What should our schools look like? We don't like the treatment in their hospitals. What will our medical establishments look like? How will our medical workers treat people who come into the emergency room? How will we do medical studies? We don't like their pharmacies, but we might need actual medication for people who are sick. So, what type of medication are we going to use? We're going to use holistic stuff, or we're going to do like they're doing and go with big pharma? And how are we going to? Are we going to inform people? Are we going to actually sit people down and inform them on what's wrong with them and what causes it and what they can do about it? Or are we going to do like they do? These are very important questions, right? Ideology helps us answer those questions. And finally, and I'm really giving you an abbreviated um, answer to ideology. There's a whole lot more than we're going to talk about today, but ideology uh, inspires people. I should also say it identifies people. I say I'm a black nationalist. Well, that's separate from being an Irish nationalist, right? Or a Chinese nationalist, right? So there's different types of even nationalists. So when I say I'm a black nationalist, that has meaning. That means we believe that the right to self-defense. We believe that we want to own some land and territory that we run and we make the rules and the decisions, right? It means that we're going to start rejecting European standards of beauty and culture and how we relate to each other. Some of our institutions, we're going to reject some of their stuff, and we're going to instead look at it from what we might call an African-centered point of view. Well, what do our people consider to be a healthy relationship, and what does that look like? What do our people believe is the purpose of a family, and how that family functions? Might be different from what you learned from Leave It to Beaver and All in the Family and the Jeffersons. It might be different, right? What does that look like for us? What does education mean for us? Does it mean we just go off and get a good job? Does it mean it prepares you with character and values that are wholesome and that benefit your people? And it teaches you specific things that make you useful, not just a bunch of information that you can't use. Know how to teach, know how to build, know how to fix, know how to solve, know how to create programs, know how to farm, specific things that our people need, right? So it's very important, does all that. And ideology motivates us. It helps us to endure struggle when change seems slow or sometimes impossible, when you get frustrated. You know why? Because you say, man, I've been trying to tell people, they don't listen, and they don't. Yeah, well, guess what? Amos Wilson explained that. Francis Chris Wilson explained it. Brother Malcolm explained it. Marcus Garvey explained it. Chokwe Lumumba explained it. That we was hit on our head with something called white supremacy. That our people were colonized by people who hated us and were jealous of us and wanted to steal our use our talents for their benefit and to be able to make us pliable, right? And to do their will. They had to miseducate us. They had to teach us stuff that would make us be like, okay, you want us to get all the rubber fluid out the trees and give it all to you so you can become trillionaires and you can build tires and okay. And if we don't do it, you're going to cut off our hands and feet. Okay. Hmm. And then you said, some people ain't going to go for that. They're going to fight back. So then you brought your missionaries, and they came with all types of holy books. And they said, well, according to this chapter, God put you here to be our slaves. Hmm? Yeah. To make you submissive, they had to teach you that, family. So we know why people are hard to reach. We know why people don't listen to us, but listen to white folk. No matter how long we've been in school, how many books we read, how long we've been doing something, we have this thing. It's a sickness, and that sickness is not organic. It comes from a process we were put through, and ideology helps you understand that. So when you get frustrated, you say, "Well, I know what we're dealing with, and I know why we like that." It give your people a little grace when you get frustrated. You say, "Yeah," and I'm like that in some ways. So it helps you kind of like understand what you're dealing with, right? All right. So without ideology, I want to say ideology is not the enemy. I want to say that clear so I'm not misconstrued, misinterpreted. Without ideology, our movements wouldn't get off the ground, wouldn't get anywhere. It'd be a bunch of random people with random ideas and just randomly doing stuff, and it wouldn't work against an organized, oppressive force. It just, you'll never work disorganized. Against a force that's wicked, but organized, right? But here's where it gets complicated. History demonstrates that an ideology can cause serious problems, family. Serious problems. Sometimes movements become so loyal to an ideology, to an idea, that they stop asking, is this idea still valid? Is this idea, or at least the way my organization is representing it, is it actually pushing us forward? Or is it pushing us back? Or is it keeping us on the plantation? But now we just got nice dashikis, speak certain languages. We say Ashe, and but is it amassing power? Are we moving? Right? Ideologies can keep you from asking the questions, particularly when you think your ideology has all the answers and answers everything. Right? So people become so loyal to an ideology sometimes they don't ask the critical questions. So instead of people asking things like, what helps our people gain power and self-determination? Some people say, who is ideologically correct up in here? Who's the real Pan-Africans? Hmm? Who's the real nationalists? Huh? So now we got purity tests. Now the goal is to see who's blacker than black. I thought the goal was liberation, unapologetically, unconditional liberation, freedom from any form of oppression. I thought that's what the goal was, right? So ideology, sometimes people now begin fighting for the ideology and not fighting for liberation, right? And become very narrow and very difficult to understand other approaches and other philosophies. So for instance, let me be very practical. There are people in our community, God bless them. I'm not mocking them, but I'm trying to make a point. There are people in our community who sincerely believe they're nationalists and Pan-Africanists, some of them, and they sincerely believe that they will never read a book like The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. They wouldn't one of the best history books ever on United States history because a white man wrote it. They will never read it. They won't learn about civil disobedience from Henry Thoreau. They won't read 1984 by George Orwell, Animal Farm by George Orwell. They just won't touch certain things because black people didn't write it or create it. That's an example of ideology making you narrow. Something that's supposed to free you and empower you is making you smaller and smaller and smaller. Why? Because while you're taking that position, I only read books by black authors. Your enemy reads everything. He reads books that they wrote, his ancestors. He reads your books, right? Don't believe me? Go YouTube, watch a thing called look up Gil Noble, look up Like It Is show, look up Daythard Perry, and he's telling you this is a guy who was an agent for the FBI. He's telling you, he said the FBI had buildings full of black and African and Caribbean art, music, books, interviews. He said I had white guys in FBI that was schooling me on stuff I didn't know about history. He said that they know that in order to defeat a people, you got to know them intimately. And here our enemy, who is beating us in many respects, is studying everything, our music. What do you think anthropology is, fam? The study of culture, right? Why do you think they came up with anthropology? Why do you think they want to study cultures? They want to know your dances, how you talk, your dialects. They want to know the gods you worship so they can defeat you. And here we talking about, oh no, it's not black enough for me. I don't do that. Don't you see what that's doing? That's rendering you easier to subjugate and defeat because you're coming into a battle, they're coming to a battle, you're coming with a knife and a fork, and they're coming with arsenals. That's what you're doing when you take these positions. And revolutionaries would classify such positions, by the way, as reactionary, meaning backwards, anti-progressive, anti-forward motion. But some of us believe that because our ideology, which is supposed to give us a framework and free us, has now become a vice grip, an illegal chokehold around our neck. It's rendering us impotent, and that's what I'm questioning in this particular broadcast, right? Um, so is this helping our people gain power versus is this black enough? Is this Pan-African enough? Are two different questions. One is going to lead you to be a better fighter and builder. One is going to be a purity contest to say, I'm blacker than you because I wear certain things. I've been certain places you ain't, but I got a certain dialect. Yeah, but if you ain't free, then that becomes moot questions, right? We forget and we begin to shift. It's called ideological drift. An organization was formed to do this. It got too caught up, and now they forgot what they were there to do. Right? It's called mission drift. You forget. And then dogmatism starts. And this is when people start treating ideological frameworks, which are supposed to be somewhat flexible. They're supposed to be able to adapt to changing circumstances, right? So nationalists in Martin Delaney's day in the 1800s, or Henry McNeil Turner's day, or Malcolm's day, or Garvey's day, might move a little differently than nationalists today. because we have something called social media, we have a digital world, we have artificial intelligence. We're not as rural and agricultural, we're more urban. So that means we're going to move a little differently because the situations are different. Now, white supremacy is still there, right? But this is what I mean. Ideology is supposed to help you to be a critical thinker so that no matter where you are and what circumstance you're in, you can say, okay, the old school nationalists, this is how they did newspapers. They typeset and they cranked, and they mimeograph stuff. But we got computers today, family. We got wireless printers, right? So we don't have to do that anymore, right? So this is the problem. Uh, Someone comes with an idea, a criticism, and I should put a parenthesis, a valid criticism. Just because you got a criticism don't mean it's valid. People come with legitimate criticism, valid criticism. You've been collecting money. You said it was to build this, and they say, "Hey, 30 years ago, you said you're building this all black hospital. You raised $8 billion. What's where's the hospital and what you done with the money?" They have that's a valid criticism. That's a valid critique and question, right? But your ideology, you're like, you can't ask the grand poobah that, right? Can I see the receipts? Can I see the people you hired? Can I see video of the hospital, photograph something? Can I go visit it? And you ordering people to go to be beaten up, smacked up, or smacked around. This is where ideology takes that really unfortunate left turn, right? The purity politics, policing the language, policing the identity, telling you what you can wear and you can't wear, and if you wear this, you down. If you wear that, you not. Really, it can get really out of hand, family. Um, and we go further and further away from what that ideology was created to produce, and that was freedom, justice, equity, self-determination, power, safety, mobility, right? We moved away from the critical questions and we got caught up in some side stuff. And now people are posturing. It's almost like they're in a now they have a Miss America contest. It's almost like we're in pageants. Everyone, different people and groups are trying to say they're the blackest person. I'm the most knowledgeable. I'm the most. And it's like, yo, that's great, God bless, man. But where's our land? What laws are we creating? How can we defend ourselves? Can we, if we was to create a law, can we enforce the law? Do we have the power to enforce? All these black women abducted, not never to be heard from again. Do we have the power to do something about that? Those are critical questions. And when we get too caught up in the ways that I have broken down, we miss out on the critical questions. We begin, it's almost like you start chasing things that absolutely don't have any real importance. And in chasing those things to see who's the blackest, who been to more countries, who knows more languages, who uses the right terminology for whatever, and we miss the real important things, right? And I want to tell you, in our history, I know you all know about COINTELPRO. Do you know, family? We've had organizations, and this I hesitate to say this. Those of you who get easily triggered, I'm going to give you a trigger warning right now. But we have in our history organizations that, because of ideology, somebody said, "Yo, sister so and so, I saw her coming out the police precinct. Yeah, and with a white dude." Now it may have been that man. She may have come out the police precinct. She may have been filing a complaint that somebody she found a prowler on her, but it may not be snitching. So now y'all think she's snitching, and there's been reports, man, of people being labeled snitches, being tortured, physically tortured. Some people have been killed, have never been heard from again. And here's the thing: sometimes the people that gave that said those accusations were wrong. And even if they weren't wrong, maybe somebody, doesn't, so and so says she don't agree with this. Okay, they don't agree with it. Does that mean we take her to the woods and torture her? No. But see, this is what happens when we're not careful, when our ideology becomes rigid, when we forget what we're there for. And now, all of a sudden, that ideology that's supposed to be liberatory, becomes oppressive. And I don't have enough time to give you all of the different rape of men and women. It's been reported in certain historical contexts and by certain organizations as a punishment for people who were accused of disagreeing with the party line or who were labeled snitches and it couldn't prove it. So this is not what ideology is supposed to do, family. It's not supposed to turn us into beasts. And when it's done that, in a very unfortunate stroke of irony, the oppressed people have now become oppressors themselves, of themselves. And that we can't do, right? When ideology becomes more important than how we treat the people, movements are losing their humanity. So they can't adapt, they can't listen. Eventually, they won't grow. Eventually, you got all these people who are disillusioned, who drop out of organizations. They leave movements. I've talked to quite a few. Had some on the broadcast. They said, "I'm not messing with that no more. This is how I was treated. I'm not doing that." And when hundreds and thousands of people are saying that, your movement suffers, right? Um, and you'll see this pattern repeats itself globally. I'm not going to get too much right now, but in the African independence context, we know that there were some movements that started out completely from a kind of a nationalist pan-Africanist orientation, were very much fighting for the people, fighting to reclaim land, and all types of things. He got in power. 1 or 2 years later, now that regime says, "Oh, I think we're gonna just have one newspaper, one radio station." Huh? You see how it works? They changed the constitution when they want, "I'm gonna be the ruler for life." And guess who they became? The very oppressor that their revolutionary movement just kicked out. I'm not making this up, family. It's called fundamentalism. And then you got dictators who got millions of people in underground prisons, torturing them, leaving them there indefinitely, killing them. And their crime was what? They disagreed with what the dictator said. These countries and these examples, if you want to talk about Congo, in some cases Zimbabwe, I can go on, started out liberatory, and somewhere along the line, they took a hard left turn, and it became something that it wasn't supposed to, right? So when our ideological position becomes more important than how we treat brother and sister so and so, when we feel we're no longer accountable to the community we say we serve, we don't bother to ask people for their input. I just did a workshop on that community input. So you're not just going out here with your great ideas. Okay, that's maybe good, but what do the people think? That's a level of humility that we need to have, right? Slowly, that ideology becomes wicked and becomes crooked, and now you can't even say, "Hey, that regime is stealing money. They're raping women. They're torturing children. You'll go to jail. You'll get killed by the revolutionary movement." That's not what our ideology is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to be anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, anti-oppression, right? And so this happens. This happened in the continent of Africa. This happened in the Black Power movement, Black Arts movement. This is a fact. I've heard today that there's an organization that's talking about to be down with them, you got to be a certain complexion of black. Family, are we losing our minds? We can't. This is not what our ideology is supposed to produce. Sometimes this happens because people get in power, they don't want to lose control, so they ratchet up the military. Now the military becomes oppressive. Sometimes it happens because they're more invested in protecting themselves than people. Sometimes they get hold of land with oil and gold and diamonds, and they're like, whoa. And they take all that, like Mobutu Sese Seko did in the Congo, right? And he's taking trips. One one trip he's taken, and now he's spending $1 million in one day. Can you imagine spending $1 million in one day of the people's money, right? Whatever the reason, the result is the same. The ideology remains, the slogans are there, but the liberatory practice is out the window. And I'm here to tell you that's not proper. And anyone who's teaching you that's proper is improper. That's not what Malcolm was talking about. Malcolm said that he was fighting against such people. He said, I fight against anyone doing it, and I fight with anyone fighting against it. That's what he said. I don't know what some other people do, right? So the question becomes, how do we prevent our movements from becoming so rigid and dogmatic that what's supposed to free us becomes a prison? How do movements build unity and solidarity without suppressing valid critique, without allowing for people to 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 dress or speak or like certain foods without us being repressive? They got to do it this way. If they don't do it this way, they're the enemy. These aren't easy questions. I'm not saying they are, but they're necessary, because movements that don't reflect on their own internal dynamics often end up repeating the same mistakes over and over and over throughout history. And serious organizers and activists and leaders, educators, we have to be willing to actually not just read and recite and quote history. That's elementary school, family. We now, what does it mean? What's the connections? What's the lesson? How do we apply the history, right? And this is exactly why this is exactly why I am doing a workshop on March 26th, in about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And it's called, the name of this broadcast, The Beauty and Burden of Ideology. And in that workshop, we're going to examine this issue much more deeply. We're going to talk about defining ideology, how ideology strengthens liberation movements, how being overly rigid with our ideology can weaken and destroy our movements, some very specific historical examples and lessons from actual liberation struggles, where they became too rigid and became much like the oppressors that they had just defeated. But more importantly, we're going to provide some practical safeguards, some things you can do to protect your organization from going that route of becoming rigid and dogmatic. Anytime somebody tells you that their one book, their one pamphlet has all the answers to everything, typically, not only might it be a cult, which is a whole nother broadcast, but they're a little dogmatic. It means that, you can't, that this one person or book answers everything. And sometimes the person that's good in theology may suck at nutrition. I'm just keeping it real, or physical fitness or economics. So it's very important. I'm going to show you how to put things in place to protect your solidarity, give people the ability to identify unity without uniformity, and to be able to hold organizations accountable. So if you're an activist, a community organizer, a political educator, or someone serious about building movements that actually empower our people, this is a conversation that you really want and should be a part of. And the information for this workshop on March 26th that I'm doing is in the description section of this video, along with the link that you can go to get to. I'm going to actually put a flyer up too. You see the flyer here I have. You can actually scan that QR code. It'll take you right to the registration form for the particular workshop. Because building strong movements isn't just about fighting oppression. It's also about making sure our movements remain worthy of the liberation that we're fighting for, that we do so and we retain humanity in doing this. So let me say this clearly. This workshop is designed for serious organizers, movement leaders, activists who really want to think deeply about strategy and leadership. If you're committed to building stronger liberation movements, I strongly encourage you to be in that room, virtual room, right? Online room on March 26th. And if you care about the future of Black liberation movements, again, this is a conversation we cannot afford to avoid. We just can't. So with that said, family, I am done. I want to thank you so much for listening. And I hope I'll see you on March 26th. Again, you get to scan that code of the flyer I put up, and you can go to the link in the description section. Thank you very much, family. Peace and Black power.